Overcoming the inner resistance to greatness is the topic of today's transmission/podcast. And if you are new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer or listener, thank you so much for your trust to come back and receive even more awareness of your own awareness, because I find that we seek this level of spiritual depth when we are ready to transcend. And you are ready to transcend the inner resistance when you have big vision, because usually when we have big vision, we also have big excuses and big resistance. Why? Great question. This is exactly why we are uncovering today, because in my practice, I often, all the time, in fact, I work with people who are brilliant. If you look at their resume, their experience, their credentials, you will never even guess that these people may have self-doubt, which goes to show that self-doubt is not reserved for those who are insecure. Self-doubt is a human response to being outside of your comfort zone. Now, when it comes to overcoming resistance, again, I want to clarify that we're not going to brainstorm high performance strategies, how to be resilient and how to push through the discomfort, how to suck it up and face the fears in the eye, all of these masculine strategies. Now, of course, I want to be very transparent with you. There is a point when you have to practice discipline. Absolutely, of course. If you find yourself recycling the same stories again and again, yes, of course, you must have discipline to tell yourself no more. Okay, so we're not talking about the self-imposed limits that only you are responsible to transcend. We're not talking about physiological fears of failure or not being good enough, although this is not necessarily physiological, it's more of a psychological. But again, we're not talking about psychological or physiological fears. We're talking about the deep resistance. This is when you have done so much work on yourself. You have faced your deepest fears. Most likely, you have already gone through a dark night of the soul. So if you are still having resistance, it's totally normal to ask yourself, so why? Why am I still feeling resistance? Now, this is what I commend, because my approach is more ancestral, okay? So I look at the bigger picture. If you have done all of the work, the personal development, the self-awareness, the personality types, you name it, you've done it, and you still have resistance, this is most likely because there is something inside you that is actually fearing greatness for whatever reason. For some of my clients, it shows up with that intimidation that they may get arrogant if they get too powerful, or for other clients, the fear is that suddenly they're going to become so successful and everyone they know is going to think of them differently. So it's that fear of losing belonging. But it's even deeper than that. It's more related to your self-concept. Do you feel like you deserve success? Is a very good question, because if you don't think you deserve success on a deep level, not intellectually, virtually everybody thinks that they deserve success. But we're talking about the deep-seated fear that you don't deserve this, that you have to struggle even more, you have to sacrifice yourself even more. Sometimes I hear from clients that they fear they're not good people, which is just crazy to think. I work with the most empathetic people on the planet, and they sometimes think they're not good people because of having more money or whatever. So you can see how much that conditioning is so heavily reinforcing that inner resistance to enjoying life. I often have these conversations with clients. Very often it is religious brainwashing that for you to be a good Christian, you have to always put yourself last, which is a total distortion of what it actually says in the Bible. Because the Bible, if you read it as a manual for success, actually shows you that everything you want is already yours, okay? And not only that, but the Bible as as a blueprint for success, shows you that your purpose in life is to be known by God, to do something that is meaningful, to be remembered. And of course, if we talk about the hierarchy of human needs in 𝗣𝗡𝗗𝗧 law, of course you have to take care of your physiological needs first in order to transcend and fully live your purpose. Because if you have concerns about bills and just normal stuff that shows up, but this occupies your entire mind every single day, you don't get enough energy to focus on your purpose. This is why with leadership, having boundaries and knowing when to step back is actually a form of caring. Because in the past I used to confuse being dedicated to my purpose with being overly available, which can actually drain your energy. And when you drain your energy, you cannot fulfill your purpose. So this is one example, even though I took a detour to this example, but this is another example how this deep subconscious resistance can show up. Like, let's say you have been burned out in the past. I have seen that with many leaders, heart-centered leaders like myself. You have worked really hard. As a high achiever, we tend to work hard. You have worked really hard. You have helped many people. You have done so much, but then one day you're just so drained, you're burned out. And of course, you eventually recover from your burnout. You start picking up your business. You start getting yourself in a position for success again. And then your brain is firing this alarm. What if you burn out again? And this is when you hold back. Or let's say you experienced a financial fiasco, you invested into a business that didn't work out, you start a new business and your brain is trying to protect you from losing money again. Even though, as you know, from a spiritual perspective, you can never lose money, because money is not an object, actually. If you think about money these days, even though we still have coins and cash, but money is not an object in the energetic sense. Money is energy that keeps circulating. So you can never run out of money or run out of time, because money and time are constantly replenishable. It's only your mind when you think you're running out of money or you're running out of time. Now, of course, you may say, Anna Maria, everybody dies, so of course I'm running out of physical time. Sure. But again, when you come back to the present moment, you can still stretch your existence. You can still stretch every single day with the power of your mind and create that space for impact. Because to play with this, I don't have time, this is how you create resistance. Because when you have, I don't have time, I don't have money, you put yourself in a box. And this box is not meant to hold your complexity. Because you are a magician, you are a visionary, you are an outside of the box thinker, you have so many gifts. So when you try to put yourself in that linear thinking of how much money or time you currently have, you are actually you are confining your potential. You're confining your potential, and then you feel stuck, and then you feel like, I am not where I belong. Now, another resistance I see is when we assume we no longer relate to a certain message just because it makes us uncomfortable. Okay. Now, of course, you must listen to your intuition, because we always evolve. What resonated with us a couple of months ago may not resonate with us right now. Relationships, you may have been very involved in a community a couple of months ago, and you're no longer involved in this community to this capacity. So this is totally normal, natural, and in fact preferable for you to evolve, not to stay in the same community and in the same mindset forever. Absolutely. But I'm talking about you experiencing resistance to hearing something that is good for you, and then withdrawing, because this is easier. This is how you are accustomed to coping with unpleasant emotions. So this is different. If you naturally outgrow a certain relationship, a certain community, a certain project, of course, evolve, graduate. This is how life is supposed to work. I constantly shift myself. I constantly shift my programs even the type of people I work with. So this is totally okay. In fact, I cannot imagine my life without changing things. I am very prone to change. I love change. As an Aquarius, I love changing. In fact, being in one place is what would make me feel icky. But we're talking about when you get to the other extreme. So we see people who are resistant to change, but then we see people who get addicted to changing, so, because it makes them feel high, the dopamine of trying different things. But when you try different things with this hectic energy, this actually again drains you. So being in one place doing the same thing every single day is draining, but being all over the place doing all kinds of things at the same time is also draining. So you can see that the resistance we experience is very subjective to who you are. This is why I never give cookie dough generic advice, because this is disrespectful in my opinion. Like, if someone is fearful of change, for them, they must overcome the resistance of changing by changing something, okay? Now, on the other hand, if you are changing too much, too rapidly, too frequently, for you, the assignment is to slow down and actually rest. Because for high achievers, resting is like a foreign language. God forbid I rest, because we start to feel guilty, okay? And I catch myself even to this day. That I like being productive. I like using my time to the fullest. And I find myself, I get frustrated if there is any form of delay, which is usually technical. Let's say I want to film a podcast and technology is not collaborating or something like that. And then I'm on my watch, I'm like, oh my goodness, 30 minutes later. So I still catch myself even to this day having that frustration if things are not going as fast as I want. So for me, as a high achiever, my assignment has always been to chill the F out, literally. And this has helped me so much with pregnancy. I am now in my 4th month. And if I hadn't learned how to relax, I would have found pregnancy very, very challenging for psychologically. But because I have already gotten in the energy of relaxing and sleeping and taking care of myself, I'm actually really enjoying pregnancy. I'm really enjoying the slowness and doing things that are luxurious, because I know that now is the time before the baby arrives to pamper myself with whatever I desire. So you get the point. You get the point that when we talk about releasing the resistance to greatness, first and foremost, you have to get to a point of knowing yourself really, really well. And this is nobody else's job but yours, okay? And as I mentioned to you, how we evolve, I evolve the people I work with. So now I only work with people who are incredibly self-aware. So when they come to me, they tell me, Anna Maria, I'm experiencing resistance, this is what is happening, this is what I'm feeling, and this is what I'm not fully understanding yet, for example. And this is where I can lean in and offer possible interpretations of why they're feeling resistance. But because power meets power in my work, my client comes to me whole, complete, fully resourced. And I am whole and complete and fully resourced. So when we meet, it's collaboration, okay? So this is a very important thing to mention in this podcast, because this is why this podcast is different. In fact, one of my clients told me, Anna Maria, you shouldn't even call it a podcast because it's more of a transmission. And I agree. This is not a manual. This is not what I do. Even though, again, if we talk about algorithms and likes and how to get more viewers, if I wanted to do this, I would tell you, here are 3 ways to release resistance. And the reason I'm not doing this is because, for me, this is disrespectful of your intellect. I believe that you listening to my words, my voice, is activating you. I believe that even if I don't tell you how to release the resistance, even though this is the topic of this podcast, the how is relevant. What I am dedicated with my mission is for you to stop fixating on the how. Because the how is not your problem, my friends. It's not how to release the resistance, even though, like I said, this is the topic of today's video. But ironically, it's not the how. It's who are you being? Who are you being when you are experiencing the resistance? Who are you being? I told you in the beginning, there is a specific reason why are you experiencing resistance. Are you fearing that having more money is going to make you someone you don't like? Are you fearing that you getting visible is going to expose you to cyberbullying and people sending you mean messages, stalking you, all kinds of things that can happen on the internet, okay? Are you fearing that you don't have the resources to build your business and then you give up before you have even started, whatever it is? So again, my audience consists of people who are at very different levels, financially, with where you are in life. So this is why this podcast is more of a painting a picture so that you can find your own answer. And speaking of which, if you are seeking a more curated, more tailored, more insightful transmission, this is the moment to invite you to join us at I was about to say Legacy Leaders, but I meant to say Energy Alchemy, because my Energy Alchemy group coaching is the foundation of Legacy Leaders. It is the foundation. This is, in Energy Alchemy, you transcend the resistance, so that when you join me inside Legacy Leaders, you are unshakable. Now, when I say unshakable, again, important semantics. Unshakable doesn't mean you never have doubt, you never have fears, you never question your vision. No, of course not. But the main difference with Legacy Leaders is that these are the type of people who are unshakable in their commitment to playing back. Do they still fear resistance towards their own greatness and brilliance? Of course, but they're no longer entertaining these stories. So this is how I want to finish this podcast. You have to take responsibility how much you are feeding these stories in your head. Are you creating statements? Are you saying, I'm failing, and you make it a statement? Are you saying, I cannot do this, and you make it a statement? Are you saying, I feel like I am a bad person for wanting money, and you make it a statement? So instead, I would love to probe your curiosity, to really start using your emotional intelligence to ask better questions, not statements. How come I feel like I'm a bad person for having more money? From where is this coming from? Is this something I learned as a child? Maybe it's something I was told in church, if you are religious or you were brought religious, or if you're not religious, maybe it is still a spiritual narrative which exists in the spiritual community, even in the so-called New Age community, that being wealthy is making you one of them, which again is one of the other reasons we experience resistance, because we create this dichotomy, us versus them, and they are always the enemy. Who are they? We don't know, but it's always someone else. So you must realize that you have to harness your autonomy, your sovereignty, your power to say, even if I have resistance, I am not my resistance. Or shall I say it even better, even if I experience resistance, I am not the resistance. I am not the resistance. I am the human being experiencing the resistance, but I'm not the resistance, because the resistance doesn't come from my soul. You must listen to this part of the podcast a couple of times. I'm serious. Let this sink in. You may experience sabotage, resistance, confrontation, fear, whatever it is. We're humans. I myself experience those moments too. But you remember, you are not this experience. You are not, because it doesn't come from your soul. It comes from your programming, it comes from your parents or other primary caregivers you've been around as a child, schooling, church, religion, you name it. There has been so much external exposure to how to live life, okay? And especially if you're more sensitive, you grow up and you pick up so much baggage from the external world that is not yours to carry. So you must release this burden. Stop over caring. Okay, you are always going to be a caring person, but stop carrying other people's burdens on your shoulders, because it's heavy, and then you are the one who has reached total exhaustion. Okay, we don't want that. We don't want you to push it and feel exhausted and misunderstood, and then you say, fuck you, I'm out. Okay, we don't want that. I'm very honest in this podcast, because sometimes you just have to have that rawness of the human language. Okay, because when we feel extremely frustrated, this is when we say, fuck you, I'm out. But what are you winning? Okay, what are you winning if this is your strategy, to just say, I'm out? The only person who is hurting is you. Okay, because I believe 110% that you came to this podcast because you were meant for something exceptional. So you just saying, I'm out. Who are you helping? Absolutely nobody. And again, to finish this podcast on an empowering note, if there is one strategy I can recommend to fulfill the purpose of this podcast, which is how to transcend the resistance to greatness, is really starting to question your stories. Really start asking yourself, okay, so here are the moments when I feel misunderstood. Here are the moments when I feel fatigued. Here are the moments when I start to feel disengaged. These are the moments when I start to put on my wall. These are the moments when I don't like who I see in the mirror. These are the moments when I think I really suck. These are the moments when I don't think I am good enough or whatever. Okay, so you do this mental inventory of what are the stories that keep repeating. Okay, whether it is financial, self-concept, confidence, communication, you name it, and start writing down these stories and tell yourself, so who am I being when I believe these stories? Because this is the only way out that is constructive and healthy, for you to realize that these stories don't come from your source, from the source. They don't come from your soul. So from where are they coming from? Chances are they're coming from an external world. And in your inner world, you have that direct connection to God, where you can purify your consciousness, reset your nervous system, and tell yourself, even if I feel like I am in a vicious cycle, it's never a cycle, it's actually a spiral. And I can decide if this spiral is downwards and I am the one sabotaging myself out of stubbornness, or is this spiral upward? It's always upward. Everything in the universe is always mirroring something. Okay, so you can either go downhill or you can go uphill. And if you are familiar with Dante, Divine Comedy is the same thing. The spiral can either get you to hell, or it can get you back to nirvana, to heaven, paradise, whatever you want to call it, the purgatory, and then the transcendence of your soul. Again, it doesn't matter. Even when I provide religious examples, they're more metaphorical, okay? Because it doesn't matter. For me, the divine is the divine. It's not labeled by a certain religion. It is the ultimate source of goodness in this world, and the love inside you. And this love that you feel is the remedy to transcend, to resistance. Because when you have deep love for humanity, for making an impact, for doing something with your life that matters, to remember that it's not about you and your human fears. It is about the bigger picture. This is when you transcend the resistance, realize that greatness is just as normal as drinking water, and you are meant for greatness. You weren't meant to be mediocre. And finally, to get yourself in that position of personal leadership, because this is your job to lead yourself to where you are destined to go. If you found this podcast stirring and you got uncomfortable, awesome. This is why I'm here. I would love to receive your insights, breakthroughs in the chat. And on a serious note, I do know that even if you felt uncomfortable, I know you can feel the energy behind my words, and I know you're feeling the activation, and I would love for you to share in the chat. Also, if you know of anyone in your network who is looking for this exact message today, even if they don't know they're looking for it, please message them and share them this podcast. If you want to work with me, you know where to find me at 𝗨𝗨𝗠𝗠𝗧, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I can share more information how to work with me in the description. And remember, you were meant for greatness, and it's time to release the resistance and claim your destiny. And so it is.